Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring, firing, and mentoring executives, frontline employees, interns, and job seekers in companies around the world through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. I work with people in Hong Kong, India, Australia, and across the United States. What sets them apart? A lot, but there's more they have in common. And one of those commonalities is transition is a part of life. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions that are big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet, the people who can make the difference that matters to you right now. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big change. The insight track you're going to access during our future episodes is better than a crystal ball. It's the exact information you need to take that next step. Whether you're a new grad applying for your first professional job, someone looking to transition your work experience into a promotion, launching your own company, or maybe even starting to plan your retirement, you're in transition, and this series is for you. We all know transition can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have VIP access to the future you want. Are you tired of the uncertainty of being passed up? We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to the front of the line. So, if change is on your horizon, or maybe just the thought of change, you won't want to miss this discussion. It could be the exact edge you need to turn transition into an amazing opportunity. Michael Levitt, thank you so much for being on this episode of People in Transition. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
I am as well. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, so I'm happy that we're finally able to do it today.
Michael, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, Jimmy Buffett tells us that growing up is a trap, so I don't recommend doing that. But unfortunately, too many of us got that message late. So I wanted to be an accountant. All the way back in 8th grade, I realized that I was really good with numbers, and that was because my first love was baseball. I love baseball cards and love figuring out how they calculated the stats on them. And I realized that it could be a good career for me to analyze numbers and work with numbers. So I decided, I want to be an accountant. So I wasn't able to take an accounting class until the 10th grade. So I had a couple of years to do some preparation and research and whatnot. And I did the legwork, and my dream came true. And went to school, got a bachelor's degree in accounting, and was in the accounting field for quite some time.
Michael, what were the transition moments that occurred to you to get you from that picture of yourself as an accountant and a baseball professional to where you're at today?
It took a lot of twists and turns. And one of the things that I tell people, especially if they're looking to start in college and they're not really sure what kind of field they want to go into, I tell them, get a baseline of accounting. It's going to help you no matter what kind of work you do, because understanding numbers and budgets and financing and investing and all that's going to bode well. But the transition, from first wanting to go into school and figure out, okay, what school is good for me? What school is local? Can I afford it? What is the tuition fees? How am I going to pay for it? Student loans, all of that kind of stuff. So each step along the way, I always looked at, okay, what do I need to do in order to get to the ultimate goal, which was a bachelor's degree in accounting? So I, mapped it out and, worked with people and did a lot of research. And of course, this was before the internet. So it was more using libraries and talking with people. And I was very fortunate in high school to get a co-op position, and I worked for a CPA firm. I worked for that organization for 8 years. So I was fortunate where there was a lot of people that I was in school with that were studying to be an accountant. I was actually working in an accounting firm. So, which was an interesting dynamic because academia versus real life, there are some variances, and I was able to see that. And, thankfully, I could talk to my professors who were practitioners at one time or another and understood what practice was like. And, of course, talking to the partners at the accounting firm, getting their take on how things are different from a practical standpoint versus school. And it gave me the best of both worlds. where I was able to really learn on the fly. And I think that paid such a big dividend. And quite frankly, I hadn't thought about that in a very long time on how instrumental it was for me to switch from the marketing program that I was in at the time over to the accounting and be able to get that accounting co-op role. It was so huge.
Well, Michael, you've certainly gone through several transitions in your work life. Which ones went well? Which ones maybe didn't go as well?
Well, from the accounting role, I ventured into information technology or IT. We were starting to see computers at work and the IBM computer and all of that. And that transitioned into what we call the dot-com era, where the internet was born and people started using the internet, and the perks from that were great. And I was really intrigued by it. I really didn't have a tech background, but I always had an interest in tinkered with computers and whatnot. And it transitioned from an accounting role, leaving a CFO type of role and going into IT, from working the support lines all the way up to being a chief technology officer and overseeing multi-million-dollar budgets and deploying servers and setting up data centers all across the globe. So here I am, somebody that wanted to be a bean counter, and next thing you know, I'm in a data center in Anaheim, California, installing servers for an internet market research firm that was a startup at the time that ended up becoming a global entity, publicly traded organization. And it just boggles my mind that I found myself in those things. But the transition from the accounting to the tech, a lot of people say, well, those are two different fields. But the analytical skills really paid off for me, because if there was a problem, a technical skill, something's not working, those skills that you use to problem solve are applicable to so many different industries. So that one went well. And once the dot-com era kind of blew up and a lot of cutbacks, I decided, okay, let's go back to some accounting type of roles if I could. And I found an organization I worked with for several years, a software company. So I was able to do the accounting stuff, but still keep my toe in the tech space. That was a good transition. And then I transitioned into healthcare, which is an extreme hard left turn. Surprised I didn't break my neck doing that turn, because that was such a dramatically different experience. I'd never worked in healthcare before. And here I am running a healthcare organization because I had a ton of startup experience, and I had to really onboard myself really quick because there really wasn't an onboarding process for me. I had to do it myself, and it took a lot of time. And my burnout journey was because of that role. And so that one didn't go as well as I wished it could have.
Michael, you've told me before that part of the reason your business that you have now is doing well is because you're an effective networker. What are the tips and techniques that you can share to our listeners on how to be good at networking?
Go into it seeking to give instead of receive. Now, if you're young in your career, you may not have the same amount of experience as some people in the room. But what I found is even giving your own experiences, even though you might be new into your field or you're looking to jump into a different industry, the experience you have is unique to you. Your perspectives are unique to you, and people like hearing different perspectives of things. So when you're going into network, go in to give, to serve, to offer something, and people will give back as well. Engage in conversations. Don't go in there to say, okay, I'm going to go into this networking thing to try to find a job. Okay, that might be a motive, but I find that it works out better if you just go to learn and listen and understand their perspectives, because people tend to like sharing their journey, their stories, some of the things that they've done well, some of the things they wish they could have done differently. And you pick up on those little tidbits of information, and what you'll find is it will help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that you may run into in your career path.
And Michael, that's the reason why it's important to ask the person you're networking with how you might be able to help them.
It's critical, because even if I can't, quote unquote, help somebody, at least it shows to the person you're speaking with that you are willing to help in any way that you can. Keep your yeses to a minimum, because you might overcommit yourself. But I find that when you go into situations like networking, for example, saying yes to opportunities could potentially open up the doors for some really big life-changing moments for you, whether it's even a new relationship or somebody that could be a mentor to you, or a connection to an organization that you've been trying to get into for 5 years, but you haven't been able to get that door to open, and you have have a conversation. The next thing you know, you are in with the chief HR officer and maybe the vice president having a conversation on some of the things that you're going to be able to do when they bring you into the organization. You put yourself in there. You're not going to find anybody. You're not going to meet anybody if you don't. So it's so critical. And even during this pandemic, it's been challenging, but not impossible. You had to be creative in many cases. But I found, I've met a ton of people over these last couple of years, yes, virtually. But case in point, tomorrow I'm meeting somebody, in her terms was in real life, someone that works in the leadership space and all of that. And we happen to be in the same town. We've been connected a while, but never really engaged. And she reached out and said, some of the work that I'm doing may be beneficial with some of the work that she's doing. So we're going to have that conversation over coffee in real person, not over a Zoom call or Skype. And it's one of those things where those opportunities are coming back. But over the last couple of years, when that couldn't be the case, we use technology. Don't let the pandemic hold you back from being able to network and grow your network and learn new things.
Michael, why is your attitude during an interview, and actually for that matter, the entire transition process, why is that attitude important to your success?
Interviewers are looking for energy. They're looking for what are you going to be like on a day-to-day basis? Because we all put our best face forward in an interview, or we should, but they want to see what you are really like. Because first date, you put on the best clothes, you present yourself your best, but they want to see what you're like under pressure. They want to see how you would react. That's why they ask those situational questions. They want to see how you think, how you would approach a challenge, because that's important. So putting your best self in an interview with the right amount of energy is critical. I'll use an analogy for something that I do because I'm a public speaker. So I go and travel and speak around the globe on a variety of different topics. Like, for example, I'm speaking this Saturday at an event. So Friday, I fly in. I'm going to make sure that I get the best night of sleep. I'm going to make sure that I eat the right foods for me that aren't going to give me any type of irritation or anything like that. So on Saturday, when I give my talk, I am rested, I feel good, I'm ready to go. The same thing should be the case for you if you're going to have an interview. If your interview's on a Tuesday morning, don't go out Monday night and have a few adult beverages with your friends. I'm not telling you what not to do, but I'm telling you don't do that, because the next day, unless you're a superhero, you're going to feel a little bit lethargic, and that energy is going to come through in that interview, and it's really going to put you at a disadvantage to others that were rested and prepared. Understand as much as you can about the organization and really, tie into why you feel that your skills matched with their mission are going to be a great fit for the people that they serve.
Michael, I've heard the line before, being good at your job and being good at landing a job are two different skill sets. What does that mean to you?
Oh, I agree. You can land a job if you're really good at interviewing. And during my career, I always have done really well in interviews. I've come up second a few times, but typically I know some ways that can convince the decision makers that, I'm going to be a good fit there because I did the homework and understand what their challenge is and say, this is what I'm going to be doing. In my first 90 days, this is what I'm planning to do. And of course, I frame it and say, now I don't know all the intricacies of your organization because I don't work there yet. So this is a document, the 90-day plan that I do, that we can go back and tailor it to what actually is going on. But once you've landed the role, now it's time to show up and back up what you just presented, because your resume, your cover letter portrays you as this individual that does the things that this organization is looking to hire for. So when you get there, you need to make sure that you are meeting up with what you're presenting, because otherwise it's going to become crystal clear, hopefully sooner than later, that maybe you're not the right fit. And I see this all the time, especially in economic downturns and whatnot. Sometimes people say, I just got to get a job. And I get that. I understand that. But don't take a job that you're not qualified for. If you're not qualified for some things that are listed on the job profile, but you still apply and you still get interviewed, be honest and open about it. Say, you know what, I don't know how to do that. But with training, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get up to speed as quickly as I can to learn how to do that. That way I'll be able to do the work that I need to do. And that's how I was able to land the healthcare job. I had no healthcare experience, but I was still hired. Why? Because of my career path and the changes and transitions that I've had over my career. The board of directors recognized that I would be able to transition into any role because I do the work in order to learn how to do the role.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. I was reading a particular author here recently, and he said there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence. Then he went on to say, that being said, don't be afraid to let people know what you bring to the table. What does that mean to you in the recruiting process?
For me, I love seeing that confidence. I look at that as being confidence, but yeah, you can be a bit cocky as well. But in an interview, you want to be bold and say, I'm confident that I can do this job. And you could even go as far as say, I'm confident that in time I'll do it better than the person I'm replacing, or maybe it's a new role. You have to be careful with that one, because sometimes people that leave organizations, they are viewed as a messiah or the greatest person in the history of people. And they leave, and those people are hurt. So you always have to be very careful when you're replacing somebody that is no longer there, and not diminish their work or their role. It's like, I want to take the great work and move it forward to the next stage of where the organization wants to go. Yeah, you can be confident in yourself, but make sure that you keep a little humbleness basically into the mix, because otherwise you may come across as being arrogant, and that may not fit in the culture of that organization.
How do you find out about that culture of the organization? Let's say that you're looking for a more laid back, more family kind of environment versus a more hard charging entrepreneurial type of environment. How do you find that characteristic out?
You can do it a little bit if you can research the organization and some of the things, look at their mission, vision, values. Sometimes that'll give you some clues. But often it boils down to the interview and asking the questions. Have them describe the last project they did. Who was working on it? What was the pace? What type of clients do they serve? What are their customers like? How long have people been here? And I've asked HR this. Why do you think they stay? Get them to think, okay, that'll share, hopefully, some insights as the type of environment that they have. If you see an organization that has people that have been there a long time, that could be a couple things. One, it could be, okay, they really take care of their people, or it could be the flip side where these people are very comfortable in their roles. Things aren't getting pushed very much. It could be a stagnant organization. And for some people, that might be exactly what you're looking for. You have to understand, ultimately, where does the organization see itself? The infamous 5 years. We certainly didn't have pandemic on any of our 5-year plans. So the next 6 months could be interesting for most organizations, but figure out where the organization wants to go. And then, do some deductive reasoning. Say, okay, if they want to do that, then that means they're looking for this level of growth with the number of people that they work with. How is that going to be attained? And if it looks like, wow, that's a lot of work for the size of their team, that could probably give you an indication that this is an organization that tends to push. If they're a little bit more conservative in where they want to go and the team size is whatever it happens to be, then that can give you a clue as to, okay, a little bit more laid back. There's different organizations for everybody. Some people like those really top-notch, push it always, never let up type of organizations, and other people like ones that are a little bit more relaxed and still doing great work and still meeting the needs of their customer base. But ultimately, you just figure out which one is the best for you.
Michael, my experience is that recruiters, hiring managers generally look at a candidate in 3 areas. First, can they do the job? Second, do you have the passion for the job? And third, do you fit into the company and the team? How do you coach people to best showcase yourself in those 3 areas?
Previous experience and where you have accomplished all of those things that you mentioned. Yes, I can do the job. Here's proof that I've been able to do the job. The passion side of things, that you should have that. There's a thing about motivating employees, and motivation comes from within. You can't motivate people. You can encourage them. You can create environments and cultures for those individuals to thrive, but the motivation has to come within. And as an employee that's applying to a new role, you need to check with yourself and say, okay, am I passionate about this role? Do I see myself being successful and wanting to do whatever it takes to be successful in this organization? Hopefully the answer is yes. If it's not, then you need to find out why and maybe take a step back and look at what type of roles you're applying for. And what are you passionate about? Everyone has passions about something, whether it's a sector, an industry, a type of role. It could be something as I want to work part-time remote, or I want to work on the beach and this is a beach company. Great. Awesome. That works out well. But you have to, check those things. And again, one of the things I see time and time again with people, especially new starts, is there's that honeymoon period and all of a sudden there's a little bit of a lull. And that lull can be dangerous. Sometimes you need to just kind of re-spark that fire and go, okay, remind yourself, why you're passionate about this. And it's a great example, especially what's going on right now in the world with the great resignation and everybody, there's a lot of people that are switching jobs a lot. And I think a lot of it is people forgot why they went to work there. And they're just kind of being reactionary and not maybe taking a step back and go, okay, why did I want to go into healthcare? Why did I want to go into finance? Why did I choose this field? What was it for me? And hopefully it wasn't just money. Hopefully it was something else, because money comes and goes. But ultimately, rekindle that passion, find it again. And it might be a situation where you don't want to work in that industry anymore. I get that. If somebody said, we have a position for you at this CPA firm, I would politely decline it. I don't want to do that. I've done it. I've moved on from that. I could do it. I don't really want to. But for everybody, you just have to figure out, okay, what's the passion? Is it in alignment with the organization? And is it an environment that allows you to really work through that passion and create great things?
Michael, you mentioned that you came in second on a number of interviews that you've had. Let's say that you have a client that is getting the interviews, but just can't seem to close and get the job offer. What would you coach that person to look at and to change in what they're doing?
Well, first, hopefully the organization that it didn't pick them and pick somebody else would be as transparent as they can be on why they weren't chosen over somebody else. And many times it comes down to, okay, they had a little bit more experience in this field or a little bit more experience in that. If you're finding that's the situation, and let's say there's a particular skill that you don't currently have, but the people that you are applying with do, well, then it's easy to gain those skills. There's so many online courses. There's community colleges. You can take some stuff. You can maybe do a volunteer position somewhere to get those skills, spend a couple hours to pick it up. Then that way you've got those skills. So it enhances your resume. If there's something else, obviously I'd love to see what their closing style is like and what their interview style is like and see how they are. If they're nervous, well, that's natural. I think a lot of recruiters see that with social media and so many people using their smartphones and recording videos of themselves and selfies and all of that. We're getting more confident talking to a screen or at a camera. A lot of people were afraid, especially, okay, we're going to videotape you and everybody's all nervous. And now we're getting used to it because we're doing it so much. Be the same way with interviewers. It's like, just have a conversation and be human, be the real you. And I think that if you do that, you just have to keep applying and keep going there. And for me, there was a few months where I kept coming in second. There was 4 places in a row that I came in second. And I know why I came in second, and for each of them, because thankfully the recruiter or the owner of the organization was quite transparent. I said, what could have I done differently? And that's one of the questions I asked. What could I have said differently? And in every case, the other candidate had a little bit more of a particular skill or understanding of that environment or that neighborhood or whatever the case may be that allowed them to basically get the job.
Michael, let's talk a bit about the negative messaging that you might be sending to yourself during the job search. What does that look like, and what impact might it have on you, and what can you do about it?
Oh, we are our own worst judge. The negative language we use towards ourselves, if we use that towards somebody else, we might get thrown in jail for abuse. We need to quit beating up ourselves. We need to love ourselves. We have accomplished so much. And you have to remind yourself of that. Even if you're early into your career, you've accomplished so much in your life so far and in your working career and personal life. So you have to be honest with yourself when you're applying for a role. You look at the job description and I highlight or star, whatever the case may be, all of the things that I know that I can do. And I make sure that not only do I know that I can do them, but I can articulate to the recruiter or whoever is interviewing me examples of how I can do it. And yes, there's just going to be situations where you may see a job description. Wow, It's like they followed me around and created a job description of everything that I've ever done. This is perfect. This looks like my resume. And you could apply and they pass you over. And that could be for a variety of reasons. It might be location, if you're not in the same area. Maybe they're using some AI-based scanning stuff, and that's why it's so important to make sure your cover letter and your resume have the phrases and the words that are in the job posting, because if they're not, you may be the best candidate on the planet for that role, but they may not see it because, as we all know, many recruiters and HR personnel get bombarded with resumes, and we're human. We're going to miss some things. So make sure that you have all of that there, but you have to keep your confidence up because that's your energy. It's like, I'm going to have a good day looking for a new role, or especially if you're in between roles. It's like, and I've been there. It's like, okay, what's my goal today? I am going to research and apply for however many jobs you feel is appropriate. And I'm going to put my time and effort into it, not just spray paint resumes everywhere. No, take a look at the job, look at research, get an understanding and say, okay, do I see myself working at this organization? Think about it. Would I like working there? Do I see myself there? If you do, then take the time, read the posting, look what they're looking for, try to read in between the lines if there's any cryptic kind of things. Not that we do that in HR, but sometimes there's some messaging that you can pick up on the type of organization that it is. And again, make sure that that lines up. And just looking for a role, especially your in between jobs, is a full-time job. Don't do it for an hour a day. Dedicate time and effort for researching, finding the roles, networking, talking with your people, letting people know that you're looking for something, and be as specific as you can on what you're looking for. There's so many opportunities that I've had over the years that came to me just because I had a conversation with somebody.
Michael, can you burn out in a job search process? And if so, how do you help either avoid it or, if you're there, to deal with it?
Burnout can happen anywhere, especially in a job search. The key is pace yourself. Don't look for a job 16 hours a day. That's way too much. You need to take breaks. You need to get up. You need to move around. Eat and drink foods and beverages that are healthy for you. And what I mean by that is figure out the foods that work well for you. There are certain foods that are really healthy that some people just can't eat because it gives them inflammation or whatnot. Figure out what those foods are and really focus on your nutrition, on foods that give you good natural energy where you don't have a crash and you feel good. Because if your energy level is good, then that means your cognitive ability is improved, your awareness, pattern recognition. When you look at a job posting, you'll be refreshed and you can see, okay, yeah, this is actually a role that would be good for me, or a role that you may have applied for and you looked at it like, ooh, wait, that sounds a lot like that place I worked at a couple years ago, and that was a nightmare, and wow, it looks like this could be a similar situation, and that way you can save yourself some time and not apply to that role. But yeah, burnout can happen in a variety of different instances, but if you don't take a break and step away from it, you can definitely burn out.
Michael, now we're going to go into what we call our lightning round. I'm going to give you a word or a couple words, and what I'd like to have you is give kind of your 10, 15-second response to that word. First one is cover letters.
Make sure they are unique to every job you apply to.
Next one, style of dress for the interview.
It's better to show up fully dressed in a suit and tie or business attire, even if you're applying to a role that is t-shirt and shorts. Show up your best version of you.
Body language in the interview.
Make sure you are relaxed. If you need to, roll your shoulders frontwards and backwards a few times before you get in there. Be comfortable. Be flexible. Stretch if you need to, but don't be rigid and stiff. The recruiters will spot that a mile away.
Your digital background on your Zoom screen.
Keep it professional as best you can. If you don't have the ability for a screen and it's your bookshelf or a bedroom or kitchen or wherever, keep it tidy. I think people are a little bit more flexible on that, but if you can keep it professional looking, that's going to be great.
Your questions that you use for the hiring manager.
Make sure you do the research. Ask them what they like about the organization. You can ask them what they don't like about the organization. You can frame it's like, what would you change? That way you're not putting a negative out there. So just ask them, what they would change if they had the opportunity to wave a magic wand or had one wish out of a genie bottle, however you want to put it, just to kind of see where the HR person is thinking. Because then that way you can use their answer, especially if you got experience around that, say, oh yeah, I worked in an organization that was struggling with that and they did this and it made it better. All of a sudden, you just offered them a potential solution to a problem they're dealing with, which will go a long way in helping you secure that role.
Last one, thank you notes.
I love those. A lot of people don't use them. They send a thank you email. I still send a thank you note in the mail. Yeah, it may get there after they made their decision, especially if it's a fast-moving company. But you know what? It's one of those things that people aren't doing. It makes you stand out. So go to the store, pick up some notes, write down a couple things, keep it short, but a couple things you discussed during your interview. They'll remember that.
Michael, any books or other resources that you'd recommend to someone going through their own transition?
One book that I think is really helpful is from a colleague of mine, and the name of the book is What is Your What? We've heard from Simon Sinek's Start With Why. That's also an amazing book. But What is Your What by Steve Olsher. And the reason is it helps you kind of flush out who you are. What are you passionate about? What are the things that motivate you in life? Because I'm not a fan of work-life balance. I think that's an impossibility. You're one person. Work is going to ebb and flow just like your life does. So you want to have a work-life harmony where you are one person that can transition between work responsibilities and personal responsibilities, but still be you. And that book helped me, even, I read it late in my career, obviously, but it was a really good book for me to help flush out, what motivates you. And there's a lot of exercises and things in the book. That book and obviously Start With Why are great books. If you're looking to avoid burnout, I've got my own book called Burnout Proof. It's on Amazon, so that can give you some insights on how to avoid burnout, whether it's in a job search or in other aspects of your life as well.
Michael, if our listeners only remember 3 things as they go through their transition, what are those 3 things that you want them to take away?
Number 1, be easy on yourself. Transitions are not easy. If they are, everyone would do it, and we wouldn't even need to have a conversation about it. Go easy on yourself. Number 2, take this as an opportunity to design your future. The steps you take today determine your future. So don't take that lightly. Plan it out. Take a deep breath and plan it out. And then thirdly, make sure that even in this transition period, you're still doing things in life you enjoy doing. Don't cut those things out because you're worried about your budget or whatnot. Still go out to have coffee with your friend. Go for a walk, ride your bike, go golfing, whatever you like doing in life, continue doing that because it's important for your overall mental and physical health.
Michael Levitt, thank you so much for some great ideas. I know that our listeners will get a lot from this, and the thoughts that you were willing to share, I know is going to help them make their transition a little bit easier and maybe even a little bit more enjoyable. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We're working in unprecedented times as the world responds to the recent COVID-19 crisis. The fact is that even those who are not in transition understand it could be right around the corner, next month, or a year from now. The purpose of these episodes are to give listeners support and the critical tools to adjust with the winds, wherever they come. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully, perhaps gracefully, or without too many battle scars, survived their own obstacle courses, and can share useful information on how to steady your ship or your world in this uncertainty. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on social media. If you have any questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I appreciate your time you're investing in sharing these important conversations with me, my guests, and others who are going through life transition. Transitions between jobs, life stages, new entrepreneurial ventures, or whatever life brings. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode of People in Transition.